this is going to have everything in it. So that's our delivery. This is our front page. This is what we have. This is our curriculum, and I'll unpack that for you. But sitting underneath this is how we deliver this curriculum. So this is all of the stuff that the teachers need to know to be able to deliver it. So it's policies, procedures, assessment, and templates and planning templates. And then alongside that, we have decided to put together all of our resources into folders that teachers might want to use in the teaching of each of the curriculum areas. So for English exam, for example, we will have things like we're developing progressions for each curriculum area. So writing progressions, reading progressions, and then just a whole lot of other resources around, like the ESTOR writing indicators and read assessment sheets and things that teachers might want to use. Okay, St Joseph's is a Catholic school in Timaru, an urban area. We sit around 200 students usually, and we have 8 classrooms, decile 7, we have probably 10, take away 3 in our school. So we've got a mixture of family socio-economic backgrounds, and our largest ethnicity aside from Pākehā would be Filipino, with a very small percentage of Maori and Pacifica. Our Catholic special character, our charism, we were started by the Mercy Sisters, and originally we're on a different site than this, and then in the 60s this site was developed as a senior school, so the junior school were still over in a different site beside the church. So we've ended up on this, when the whole school came together, and I can't tell you exactly what year that was, on this site we're actually a long way away from our church, so we have to make a real effort to be part of our Catholic community because our church involves a car or bus or bike trip. Our vision here, we've always followed the Mercy charism, so we start with our Mercy cross in the middle, and we have a vision around our motto, entering to learn, living to serve, and our vision is to acknowledge that Catholic education is part of a lifelong process leading to a full and rewarding life. How we got to this final product, we began as really part of a strategic visioning process with the board and staff. So the board and staff had a session together, and we looked at 3 basic questions, and they were, what do we want our students at the school to be, know, and it was be, know and do before they come out of our school. And we brainstormed that, and we came up with some ideas which we then put into a framework, and we decided that the way that we would then go to the parent community and the students was that we developed a little kind of homework sheet. It had 4 sections, and we put some of our ideas in it, and then we put some questions around what the parents and the students thought, and the students filled it in and then had to take it home and talk to their parents about it, and the parents put their ideas onto it. And we got a lot of feedback from that, and from that feedback the staff, we had a teacher only day, and we took all of the ideas of the board and the staff and the parents, and we thought about what that meant for what our curriculum would look like. And the board took the information to look at what was our strategic direction. So we kind of used it for 2 processes. And we began with our enter, learn, live and serve. And we thought we'd use those questions, and we went out in circles from that. So we answered, what do we want our learners to be, and when they enter, when they learn, when they live, and when they serve. So this is like the essence of what we want them to be when they come to us and when they go away from us. The next circle out, what do we want our learners to know? And so we focused on those questions. When they enter, what do we want them to know? As they're learning, what do we want them to know? As they're living, what do we want them to know? And as they're serving, what do we want them to know? And how are we going to do it? So the next circle out is, what are we going to do to make sure that these things and these things happen. When they enter, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to ensure that learning's happening? What are we going to do to ensure that they can live fully life rewarding ways? And what are we going to do to help them to be people of service? And then the last circle out is how will we know? How will we know and tell how we're going? So it's kind of our self-review. What things will we know and will we be looking at to ensure that happens? And sitting around outside of our circle, we looked at how we've got systems and practices. So this is a system and practice that we use. We've got reporting on student achievement, so all of our assessment things sit in here. And the quality teaching practices and the enhanced learning environments that we want to have. That's our sort of outside circle. And the umbrella over all of that is that we are developing those competencies for living and lifelong learning. Our starting point for developing our own school curriculum was the key competencies. So at our school we decided that we would begin by unpacking in depth the key competencies, and we spent about 18 months really in depth getting understanding. We already had a fairly clear vision, and the underpinning principles for our school, we looked at those, but we felt that we had those two things well in place and we had a good understanding of them. But the key competencies, we felt we really needed to get a good understanding to be able to understand where they fitted with our curriculum, which is why they've ended up as being a real umbrella, because we believe that developing competencies fits into our vision for living and lifelong learning. So in unpacking the key competencies, we worked with a facilitator. Our senior management team would work with a facilitator, and we unpacked each of the key competencies. We looked at how they would be in the classroom, and we looked at different strategies for developing competencies. And so we looked at a strengths approach, which was quite a strong one. And each time the senior management team would work on something, then the staff would work on it, and then it would go out into the classrooms. That was kind of the process that we followed. And we did about 5 things with the students. We unpacked each competency in detail. Then we looked at a strengths approach. So we talked about when you're really good at managing yourself. It may be that when you're playing rugby, so we looked at that approach, and we actually used things like pie graphs. So students would plot something they were really good at when they were using their competencies, and then think of something where they were struggling to use their competencies and compare where their strengths were. Was it relating to others, or was it participating and contributing? That was the weakness that was holding them back. And that approach we've continued to use. This year we're looking at using habits of mind, and every year in term 1 now there is a real focus on unpacking the competencies again with students. So our parents began talking in the language of the competencies quite quickly because it was so embedded in the classrooms. As a Catholic school, as we were brainstorming what we needed and what we were going to put into each of these as a staff, gospel quotes just came to us, and I remember us going, to live that, what we want them to do, we want them to come that they may have life and live it to the full. And when that came to us, we thought that's actually the real axis of what we hear about. It's the centre of it all. So we decided that we would have these gospel quotes that kind of imbue what we're doing. So this goes out into live, but it's not just about living, it's about entering and learning and serving. And we've got one for love, and we looked and got one for learning, and we've got one for entering, but the lines are blurred because what underpins us is the gospel values, and the gospel is what we're about. So that just is the centre of what we're doing. We used the literacy progressions, and we looked at ASTL, the writing progressions and ASTL, the writing indicators in ASTL, and we kind of struggled, but we wanted to get something that was really clear and generic across whatever genre you were doing. What were the deep features, what were the surface features that you would be doing if you were a level 1 writer, by the end of level 1. So they do kind of fit with the national standards, but they're based on the literacy progressions and the curriculum. So that's what a level 1 writer would be expected to be using. And then we looked at the surface features, and we did the same thing for spelling and grammar and punctuation and handwriting. And they're really pathways that we wanted to put them so students could look at that, and they can look and say, you know, I can do this and this, so if I can do this, if I'm wanting to move to this, what should I be doing? We have this curriculum delivery document, which is our overview of how the curriculum is delivered at St Joseph's. And every year in February, the senior leadership team have 2 to 3 days retreat together, and we go through each and every document in here and review it. And then we have a full staff meeting when we come back, and the staff go through and we consult with them about changes we've made, and we do make changes regularly. This year and the last few years, we've spent a lot of time looking at assessment. The beginning of it's our annual planning and all of that sort of strategic direction stuff. This year we made quite a lot of changes. This is sort of an overview of how our curriculum's delivered here, and we thought about the way, what our core subjects are. We've got a belief statement, we've got how we manage our curriculum, we have the key competencies, we've got the learning areas, and what's integrated and what are our foundation and knowledge and skills. We're feeding into our assessment program and reporting to students and parents. And the other area that we regularly spend a bit of time reviewing is our beliefs about learning, which has a lot of our pedagogy of what learning it will be at St Joseph's School. And we've probably simplified that a lot in the last few years, and so that's quite particular, and how optimum learning happens. And because we've been part of an ATOL project in the previous 2 years, we've spent a lot of time reviewing assessment and reporting, and so we've got a new procedure around that, and we've really revised what are the purposes and methods of assessment at St Joseph's School. And then we have what the requirements are at each level, which has been revised, probably in particular looking at national standards, and what sort of formats we're using for assessment, and our learning conference planning and things like that. So it takes a good 2.5 days to do that. And the other section, we have quite a section on our integrated curriculum, managing the curriculum. What our focus for reviewers and staff development, what our integrated curriculum is like for the year. And we're always changing the planning formats for that at the beginning of next year. I've got some ideas around that. And then the last section is around just classroom planning and organisation. What next? Well, actually, we felt last year that we were a bit derailed by national standards. So this year we've brought our focus back to have a look at this, and we've spent a whole staff meeting having another look, and we were quite pleasantly surprised that this still speaks to us as being St Joseph's curriculum. We want to take it back to our parent community again and really unpack it with them. I feel that they gave feedback into it, but we probably haven't taken it back out to explain it to them again, and we're probably due for some more strategic planning process, and that would be part of that. And then to support staff, and we're aware of new staff coming in, we are developing some resource folders, because we had lots of different curriculum folders in the past. We're kind of going through those, turfing out all the stuff that we don't need in there, and just putting in things that will be helpful for teaching and learning. So we've developed an English resource folder. We're looking at like maths folder, basic facts folder, just things that will support teaching and learning at St Joseph's.